I love Supertramp. It's one of the best albums ever made. And Breakfast in America, it inspired me actually to want to be a waitress back in the day. Hi, Babushka. I don't know where to begin with this one, but I was thinking about making it into 2 parts. We're just gonna hit it and put it all in. It's gonna be about Mom, you know, your wonderful grandma, and how everything hit the fan. Just a bunch of shiza, a real storm. And I was very young. It's about 8 years old, turning 9. Jewel had met a really wonderful man, a young guy, about 2 years older than her, around 1980. And she was going to school. They actually met going to a fencing class, you know, fencing. And great guy, lived in another small town, but not as small as Humbleton. She was living in Salem at the time with the woman who would become my future guardian. So they wanted to get married. I don't know if it was her very first relationship, but it was very close to it. To this day, they're still married. Beautiful wedding. A lot of hell with our dad, because the guy was Lutheran. Now, Granddad was totally cool with it, and he knew her struggles. The year before, Dad didn't even want Jewel to go to the prom, and the only way she could go was if he followed her there in the other car and waited in the parking lot. I mean, she graduated in a class of maybe 15 kids, maybe a little more, almost 20. I don't know, I forget. But then he waited for her, and then they proceeded to drive from the school to Salem. She didn't even have a date. She just met up with other cousins who were friends of hers, and is a nightmare. He had to follow her all the way to Salem, to the bigger town nearby, where they would go out dancing, and made her life hell. So when she graduated high school, and she just ran. She just got the hell out of Dodge, went to Salem, started going to school, met her future husband, and got hitched. But it was a beautiful wedding. And then a year later, Grandpa died. He was the real patriarch, as I've said before in a previous chronicle here. And Mom had the accident. Really bad. Bad back. The doctors said it was sciatic nerve pain. Now, sciatic nerve pain is usually caused by working too hard on your leg muscles, maybe tweaking something in your back, and it causes a huge strain. It usually starts at one side of your back and it goes all the way down a leg. And the best way to work it, well, back in the day, this is the early 80s, they had this thing where you lay down and rest. No, it's not true. After doing more and more scientific study, especially with sports medicine, the best way to work it out, when I went through that, I learned that right away, is just to keep walking. Take it easy. Take some time off, but keep walking and just work it. But with Mom, this was something else. They prescribed her medication. The medication did not help the pain, but she faithfully took it. And it wasn't good enough for her husband. As soon as his father-in-law died, things just accelerated. And like I said before, he was very fundamentalist Catholic and was raised by his Victorian-style grandparents. And we did have corporal punishment in the household. If we got what he called a licking, a spanking, we had a large leather strap, longer than a yardstick. You had to wind it up. And it wasn't like a short belt. It was the kind of straps you hook on to wagons, that hook onto horses, or say a carnival caravan kind of thing. But it hung up on the side of the fireplace, next to the fireplace poker in the living room. And if we were out of line, that's how he would punish us. He couldn't chase us down, though. He started to train the boys to come and fetch me, or if one of the boys was in trouble, he would get the other son to go fetch him. And this was common with a lot of families in the whole town. How do I know this? Well, I talked to all my young friends, and even though I'm going to point this out again, it was really there. And that's how we grew up. I even heard stories about kids being dragged into woodsheds. And just normal. And the parochial school, they had corporal punishment too, with the nuns. But we're going to hit on this. You know, your Uncle Jack, very beautiful as a child. He was small in stature for his age. And Mom and Dad, and it was mostly Mom, because she had talked to some other teachers and teacher supervisors at both the school that she worked at and at the Catholic school, that he should be held back. And that way, because he was so small, it would even out as far as competing in sports and this and that. It would help him out in the long run. And that was good. She did him a favor. Very intelligent. Photographic memory. Gorgeous. As he grew and matured through puberty, he had an athletic, Spartan look about him. And when he got into his early 30s, you could even compare him to the looks similar to Prince William. Just gorgeous. And Eddie was gorgeous too. Despite his disability, he wanted to catch up to Jack desperately. He desperately wanted to fit in with the other kids. He had a harder time dealing with the teachers and the nuns at the parochial school, even though they both served as altar boys and they did all of that kind of stuff. There was a lot of competition and a lot of demands for perfection. Now, Jackie He is perfect. Photographic memory, good grades. He ended up doing very well in high school. Student body president, president of the Future Farmers of America, and top grades, just 4-point average. And he ended up going to one of the finest military schools in the country. He wouldn't have made it if it wasn't for Mom. He played football, captain of the football team, and they won state his senior year. All that fun stuff. And I admired him as a young girl. I was a little tomboy, and he was one of the few of all the relatives that were older than me hanging out and stuff where I didn't mind him tickling me or picking me up and tossing me. I would usually side with him. I had a hard time showing sympathy for Eddie. Eddie did some crazy things. I don't know if it was part of the competition. As a young boy, he got caught more than once making trails of gasoline in the garage and lighting it on fire. He was also gun crazy and shot and tortured a lot of little wild animals, stuff like that. And he also had, I don't know, his sexual needs, they rose up way too fast. I think he lost his virginity at the age of 12. In fact, I know he did because I was friends with the girl that it happened to. And when she tried to tell me all the details, how it was, you know, great and stuff and this and that, I'm just like, okay, we're done. I just came over to play. But Dad did not discipline the boys like he should have. Maybe he felt it unnecessary. I don't know. And there's a thing about when psychologists and psychiatrists, they use the term victim a lot. And to me, the term victim is very counterproductive. They use it, it's similar, they use it kind of tying to the word complacent and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't see Mom as a victim in her demise. I see her, or saw her even then, as a target. There's a big difference. But Jack, he wanted to fit in with all the popular upper echelon of the society. He wanted to take the reins and just be in control of everything. And he would use little tricks. Things that our sister noticed, and I was a little bit blind to. I kind of Pollyannaed the thing and wanted to see the good in him. But after 1981, I slowly saw things just deteriorate. It was just like a backlash of everything I saw as a child within the family. He started to get full reign of everything, and the ranting and criticism and verbal abuse that Dad started to put toward Mom, Jack took over, and nothing was good enough. Everything she did was criticized. for some reason, she quit sleeping in the bedroom, you know, with Dad. And she would often kind of isolate herself, sleeping on the couch and this and that. She had a few allies, though, still, and we'll talk about those allies in future episodes. But Jack would often set her up for demise and trouble. I don't know where to begin. It's just horrible. Give me a second to think about it. It is very hard. Oh, God, where do I begin? Mom loved him. His junior year, during football practice, he got a slight injury in football from a tackle. He was linebacker. And he had a slight pain that progressively got worse and worse and worse. It was about 1983 or so. Mom kept begging him to go see the doctor. And finally, she organized some other male relatives to kind of help her out and coax it all along, but she put her foot down. And then she got her mom, she got Grandma Esther involved. And he finally went to the doctor, and the doctor said, if it wasn't for your mom, you could be paralyzed from the neck down. And he had to wear a brace. And that's the reason why he wasn't accepted into West Point. He went to the military school kind of a notch down. And she was really there for him. She did a lot of good things for us. When I was 9 years old, year after Grandpa died, I was standing on the edge of the Wheatland Ferry in Salem, Oregon. One day, we had drove there just to look at the view. I was there with my mom and dad only, and I was up close to the edge where the ferry would take off to take the cars across the river. And I was stepping too close, you know, on the slope in the slime, and I slipped. I got tangled up in the current. I was still close to the edge, but I was down in. I was tangled up in a bunch of blackberry and belladonna weeds. I can, to this day, remember seeing the bubbles and seeing fish and seeing my hair float around. Then I saw the reflection of Mom's high heel pumps. She pulled me out by my hair. You know, and afterwards, you know, she dried me off with her coat. Dad was okay. He felt helpless, though, because all he could do was open the car door and kind of look over. But we ended up going out to eat after that, and I'm still soaking wet and sitting on Mom's coat. She did a lot for us. Eddie, God bless him, I love him too, but there's problems there too. He wanted so much to walk and run like the other boys. He had his last operation around 1983. Actually, it's between 1982 and 83. It took him like a whole summer to heal. Very painful. And one day the stitches ripped out of his wound of his left side, where there was a big metal plate like the size of a butter knife. Had to be in there till everything adjusted and healed, and then they'd take it out. But the stitches came undone, and he freaked out. And Mom was right there to hold everything together and to take care of business. And then when he was healing and on crutches and going back to school, the PE teacher, who was also the football coach, called. And by this time, Mom's back pain was so bad she couldn't work anymore. So she was home. But the coach called and said, you know, we're running around the track here. All the kids are running around the track. And I thought your son was supposed to sit out. But he is actually running around the track, crying and grunting, in anger. But he's going faster than the other boys. What do I do? And she said, you know, the doctor said he can do whatever he wants as long as he has his crutches. So if he feels like he doesn't want to do anything, he won't. If he feels like he's in danger, you know, and if there's going to be a problem or if he's in more pain, he'll come to me about it and we'll work it out. So she did do a lot for us kids. But Jack, he's awful. I heard rumors of physical abuse later on from Grandma and from my cousin Sophia's mom in the bedroom. And that was one of the reasons why she kept sleeping on the couch. And then with Jack, if Mom got out of line, there was physical abuse. It all came to a head one day. We're going to fast forward to about 1983, 84, in the summer. It was almost fall. And Jack decided he wanted his friends over. He had had his friends over before. However, he felt like the house needed to be in order. And Mom was a slob. And she had to do this, she had to do that. It had to be a certain way all the time. And Dad just kind of let him take the reins. And oftentimes Dad was going to the tavern more and more often with his friends. Sometimes he'd get so drunk that his friends would have to carry him up the stairs. He was too cheap to invest in a wheelchair ramp, you know, to kind of up stuff. So they'd carry him up. And I had to deal with that too. But that's another story. But Mom's pain progressed, and she started to develop some swelling. It's hard for her to walk. Hard for her to focus. It would take all her energy just to get certain chores done or just to run errands. And I remember one day, Jack just went into a rage. You know, the jackal really did turn into a monster. And it scared the shit out of both Eddie and I. And Eddie and I had our issues, some serious ones. Maybe that'll be in another episode. Yeah, it probably will, because it's good. But Jack decided we're going to straighten out everything and make it perfect. And he proceeded to gather up stuff of Mom's that she didn't straighten out, like around the china cabinet and places like that, and put it all in garbage bags and throw it away. And he was the one, I believe, who instigated Dad wanting to divorce her, or you better do this or else. And I remember being in the kitchen and Jack ordering Eddie and I to just start scrubbing, cleaning. I'm down on my hands and knees scrubbing the floor. And Mom was in so much pain that day, and she was crying and crawling on her hands and knees into the kitchen, begging Jack. And this is another thing too. I think children and teenagers do know the difference between right and wrong. They really do. Now, some people might call it sociopath or narcissistic behavior. I think that's a psychological cop-out too. I really think it has to do with dog-eat-dog class society, and the people in the way get wiped out, and they find a reason why, you know, to make them a scapegoat. But Jack proceeded to kick her so hard as she's begging. And the next day, you know, it was like the beginning of the school year. The next day, I'm coming home from school. I think it was a Monday. So this happened on a Sunday. Oh, yeah. Whew. You know, Mom's gone. She had a heart attack. And she was in, oh, let's see. She died at the age of 47. So let's see, 46, 45, 44. So she was about 43 years old. And gone. In the hospital. And we proceeded to act like everything was normal. It was not normal. Year prior, I could kind of see things kind of escalating to this point. I rebelled by not eating. It was really easy to do. You just pretend like it's part of Lent. And I knew how to hide. I knew how to hide things. I just, you know, it wasn't appealing to me. I was not happy. It was just my way of having some sense of control. And I was already skinny as a rail. So, who would notice? And nobody really did notice. One teacher actually pointed it out and kind of separated me from the other kids, looking at me and saying out loud, "What is wrong with you? Are you okay?" But that backlashed because all the other kids are now looking at me, and she just kind of made a spectacle of the whole thing, and I didn't want to talk about it. There was no talking about it because Jack would not allow it. You just didn't dare. But going back to Mom, she was gone. She's in the hospital. I wasn't allowed to see her. They behind her back, they talked horrible things about her and how to get rid of her and this and that. She stayed in the hospital for quite a while because she had to have triple bypass surgery at the age of 43. Back then, the technology wasn't as good as it is today. So it was some serious shit. When she finally got out, she moved in with her mom. Mom, prior to that, had sold Moonshine Hollow after Grandpa died eventually because she couldn't upkeep it. She had retired. She had enough money to make a comfortable living, and she moved to Burnwood, which is in between Humbleton and Calabasa, Oregon. A nice place. Population 10,000. And she had a beautiful, brand new, double wide. It was a trailer home, a manufactured home. 2 bathrooms. One of the bathrooms, the bathtub, was like a jacuzzi. A wonderful place, wonderful neighborhood with wonderful people. And it was comfortable for her. But while Mom was in the hospital, Grandma paid a visit. I don't think she had even been to the house since I was a baby. And Jack had been out and about with a girlfriend. I think it was homecoming at a dance. And Eddie and I were home. Dad was out with his friends at a tavern. Grandma Esther laid it out with Jack. And everything was hidden. And just confronted him and said, fucking shit. What the fuck have you done to my daughter? And then she dragged me into a separate room and said, you know, has Sarah been beaten up? What's going on? You know? And I just let it out. And I said, if I have to stay here any longer, I'm running away. I'm going to go down to my dad's sister down in Sacramento, California. I didn't even know the woman, but I just wanted to leave so bad, even if it took me walking miles out of the town and hitching a ride or whatever. I didn't care anymore. And so Grandma was like, well, your mom's coming home with me. And she didn't say she said we are filing for divorce. And you're going to come along too. She goes, at first I thought it would be Eddie, but she could tell I was skinny as a rail. And that's what I did. But she did confront Jack. And she put her finger to his face. And she called him a monster. And referred to him as the time bomb. And she's like, I never trusted you. Imagine that. What a family. Anyways, that's about the most I could spit out for this, babushka. It's really hard. I know you've seen me talk about it a little bit in the past, especially when you were little and break down. I remember, and you might remember when you were little, I don't know, I would get nervous and kind of frazzled if you were near my brothers. Even when you were an infant, your father thought I was weird because your Uncle Eddie came to visit because he was doing some college stuff going from Oregon State to UW, Washington, and he wanted to see you for the first time. I think you were like 2 months old. So we meet him at the airport and he wanted to hold you, and I was very hesitant and just my reflexes and everything, and your dad was looking at me like, come on, let him hold her. And then visiting Jack, and even after him and his wife had their daughter, I was always hesitant about you being around him. And I don't know. We'll talk more about that later. But in the end too, during this time, and this will be in the next episode, but I'm going to give you kind of a little something here. When Mom quit working as a teacher, And when she quit working field work in the summertime because of her back, there was a serious incident that happened. She wasn't informed about it at her school. However, she did have the training as an educator that when these things come out in the open, to do something about it. Serious situation. So here we go. One of the last years she was tying hops. She's out there. And there's a group of Mexican women. Some of them she knew because she worked with them. A lot of them were immigrants from Mexico. Now, you can call them today illegal, but they were not, because during the Reaganomic era, President Reagan and his people, Republicans and then the Democrats, bipartisan decision, they decided to grant all amnesty for all immigrants across the United States. So these folks had a right to be here, to work, and to prosper, and to build their families. But there was still a lot of fear, and there was that class divide, and a lot of them got paid less money than your average minimum wage worker, you know. But these group of women approached her. She could speak a little bit of Spanish, more European style, like Castellano. But she could understand, like, the rough language, you know, like have a regular conversation and figure things out. Well, they asked her, "Are you Mrs. Williamson? We have issues with your husband. Da 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 da. Our children, our children, our children. What is he doing to our children?" And Mom was like, no, 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 no. Slow down, slow down, slow down. And figured out that the person that they were talking about, she's like, "Oh, that guy? Oh, no, 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 no. That's actually my husband's cousin. He's one of the higher-ups, the mayor of the town." You know, people talk about the whole pizza thing, about children ending up being missing or being sexually molested or violated. Well, we can talk about tacos. Mom blew a whistle, okay? But unlike a whistle like this, that's fun looking and makes noise, she blew a silent whistle. Now, silent whistles can be heard by the dogs. They can also be heard by dogs who turn into monsters. And with that note, remember to ring the bell.